is, who's going to roast us this evening. And then I have Gaston to my right that I've known for about a year now, and he's a wealth of knowledge, and you're going to hear from him. And then, of course, JJ Mazzo and his lovely wife, Kimberly, right there. They helped us put this as well. So I just wanted to get those thank yous out of the way, and without further ado, Simon.
All right, guys, let's have some fun. I don't really think I need a microphone, but apparently you guys said I need it. So here we are. I've got a couple of questions, but I also want to hear what you guys have to say as well. We've got 2 microphones, so I'll leave 1 microphone with the panelists, and I can come out to you guys and run around like a crazy guy, give you guys a chance to ask the question yourself. But let's start with a question for Cheryl. Start grilling her. Cheryl.
Yes.
Is Orange County facing a housing inventory shortage?
Yes.
Can you elaborate?
No. Okay, if you
That's good because there's nothing to talk about? No shortage?
Yeah, there is a shortage, absolutely. And I bet you want to know why. Anybody have any guesses why?
Election.
Election. What else?
Hard to get to build.
It's hard to, yes, exactly. What else? Why is there a housing shortage?
People want to stay settled. They want to stay with their
They want to stay settled? What about that 3% interest rate that everybody loves? JJ, you want to comment on that?
They love the 3%.
So yes, so 3%. A lot of people don't want to move because you know what, during COVID they got the 3% interest rate. They love their house, or maybe not, but they're still married to that rate. So based on that, if it, an interest rate's at 7%, they don't want to double their mortgage or more, so they're staying put. So that's why we're seeing a little bit of that housing shortage. Somebody said election. Yes, people are nervous. 50% of the country's going to be happy, 50% of the country's going to be mad. So what? It happens, every 4 years we see this, but people still move. But it causes people to delay a little bit, so right now we do see an inventory shortage.
Thank you for elaborating. That was much better.
Okay.
Yeah. JJ, on that point, this is even not even on the sheet. I just want to elaborate off that because someone brought it up to me. I want to make sure it's a bit of a correct fact. I heard that 70% of all mortgage holders in the United States have a rate under 3% for the next 28 years.
Yeah, somewhere around that. The good news is, it is what it is most of the people are in, up to their eyeballs in massive amounts of credit card debt and high interest debt. So when they look at their total amount of debt that they have, between the credit cards, the cars, and the mortgage debts, their mortgage rate, their overall debt load rate for their house is much, much higher when you look at an average rate.
Gotcha.
Rate is what we look at.
Gotcha. Makes a lot of sense, guys. That's why there's a lot of shortage in the marketplace. Let's go with a question for you, JJ, seeing as you've got the microphone in your hand. The question that everyone asks you, and you can probably say before I even ask you, is will interest rates continue to rise or fall?
If there were a crystal ball, we would all love that. But what I can tell you is the way the rates right now are very sensitive based off economic data. So the Fed interest rate is not directly tied to mortgage rates. Mortgage rates are tied to the 10-year Treasury yield. You can look at it every day. It moves up and down. And the lower that 10-year Treasury yield goes, the better it is for mortgage interest rates. That's why we saw mortgage rates drop about a percentage point before the Fed even touched interest rates. So we're finding a lot of economic data is what's driving those interest rates, and they'll continue to do so. We work a lot with Goldman Sachs. The anticipation is the Fed will drop rates 2 more times before the end of the year, 4 more times next year, but it's really that, how consumer spending is going, debt burden, all of that, and the economic, outlook for the United States itself that's going to really move that 10-year Treasury yield independently from there.
So what's your gut?
My gut is, rates are going to drop. I sit in executive meetings at our mortgage company, and, we're expecting that we'll be in the 5s relatively soon. Most of the people that had 3% mortgage rates, had 5% mortgage rates, they can swallow a higher mortgage rate. It's just not going to be at an 8% mortgage rate, which is why we saw things slow down so much.
Excellent. This is some positive news for the marketplace, definitely. Gaston, let's give you some pressure. I'm thinking about buying my first rental property. Is my first rental income fully taxable?
Hey everybody, I'm Gaston or Gaston, depending on what you feel, whatever mood you're in, I guess. I'm a real estate wealth advisor. That's ultimately what I do. I'm an agent. I'm kind of hybrid between an agent and like a CPA and a financial advisor. And I help people that own all types of real estate on a daily basis understand whether they should sell their principal residence or whether they should, do a 1031 exchange. But to that question directly, if you're thinking about buying an investment property, there's something called depreciation. When you buy a rental property, depreciation is, a little bit of a gift that the government gives you. It's an assumption that if you hold your rental property for 27 and a half years, it's going down in value just from, the wear and tear, and you can write that off on an annual basis against your income. So your income's not fully taxable, just depending on how quickly or slowly you ultimately depreciate your property. So that's one of the main reasons why people, own rental property.
Excellent. I'm going to stay with you while we're on the mic. I want to sell my investment property in 1031 exchange with a 1031 exchange, but I do not want to buy in California. It's too expensive, and I don't like California's landlord laws. And what are the solutions to that?
Does anybody know what a 1031 exchange is in the audience? Has anyone ever done a 1031 exchange? Just a couple. Anyone not know what a 1031 exchange is? So in layman terms, a 1031 exchange is a tax code that's been in the IRS for over 100 years. It's the most powerful way to build wealth in real estate. You buy a rental property, you sell it for more than what you paid for it. There's a capital gain, appreciation, and you decide you want to sell it. You have to do a 1031 exchange. You can't realize the gain, you can't receive the proceeds, or else it's fully taxable. So you do a 1031 exchange. You have 45 days to reinvest your proceeds of equal or greater value into another investment property. And that's when you continue to accumulate wealth, and you can do it for the rest of your life, never pay tax, and then when you pass away, your heirs get a step up in cost basis, and it's a very, very powerful way to build wealth and pass down wealth to your heirs, tax-free. However, if you own rental property in California, as you guys know, there's a lot of headaches, more so I think in California than most states. Right? You've got the government, restricting you on how quickly you can raise rents, the taxes, and so that eats into your return as a landlord. And so I have a lot of clients that want to do a 1031 exchange. They have a really good price point. They've got millions of dollars of equity in the rental property, and they want to sell it and take advantage of Section 1031, but they don't feel comfortable buying in California again. The price points are too high. And if you're an investor that's in this, he or she in their 60s or 70s, your needs change when you're, in retirement. You want cash flow. And so buying rental property, especially in Orange County, is not typically a high cash flowing, price point. It's typically more of an appreciation play. And so there's solutions for those that are looking at 1031 exchange to get out of California. And that's what I help people do, ultimately get you access to other areas across the United States that are actually thriving and better cash flowing opportunities, and there's zero management. You guys can literally invest directly into multi-billion-dollar real estate operators and the projects that they're managing. Apartment buildings, self-storage, triple net lease, senior living, student housing, in areas that are filled with job growth, population growth, and way better landlord laws and more favorable tax treatment. So that's one way to take advantage of the 1031 exchange and get out of California without having to pay tax, or being involved and having to figure out, how do I buy something in Tennessee? I have no idea what to do.
I'm going to touch on that a little bit more. And as you guys may know, I'm not born in this country, okay? I'm learning new stuff like you guys as well at times. My understanding, you can buy anywhere in the country when you're doing 1031 exchange, and you can buy multiple properties, so long as it's at or above the equivalent value of the property you're selling. What if you, I'm going to be extreme here, you go and find 40 properties that equivalent to the number that you're selling here in California, one of them falls out of escrow. What happens to that?
So if you're selling a rental property for $1 million and you've got your eyes on a couple of properties that are equivalent to that million, right? Maybe not 40, but maybe
in Alabama, maybe
3 or 4, right? You have your eyes on 4 properties that you want to close on, and one of them falls through. And let's just say that one property that you have your eye on is $200,000. So, but on that 44th day, you got 45 days to identify. On that 44th day, one of those properties falls through. 9 times out of 10, you just bite the bullet.
Okay.
Tough luck, you have to pay the tax. Or you can always identify a backup option with the Delaware Statutory Trust. This book here at the front called "Are You Tired of Tenants, Bills, and Trash?" It's called the Delaware Statutory Trust, a DST. It's a passive legal trust that owns and operates institutional real estate for 1031 exchange purposes. And at a given time, I have access to 45 different options that have been vetted and scrutinized, are cash flowing today. So anytime you're doing a 1031 exchange, even if the DST is not your priority, you can always identify an address just in case. That's the kiss of death for any investors. What happens if something falls through? You can always have as a backup option.
Can you nominate an extra one just in case?
Yeah, I have a lot of clients that let's just use $1 million as an example, and they want to buy more than $1 million of real estate. How do you buy more than $1 million of real estate when you do a 1031 exchange? You either have to cough up more cash, or if you go to lender, you go to JJ's company, and you get out a loan, and perhaps given where you are in your age and where you are with finances, maybe taking out a loan in your 70s or 80s is not as optimal as it would have been maybe years prior. You can invest in DSTs that have debt already built in on the real estate, so you can get your $1 million or even more, which will lead you to getting more cost basis anyways.
Excellent. Good answer. Thank you for sharing that. Cheryl,
Yes.
you're back.
Hello.
So, I've got a couple of questions here, but they all sort of line up with each other, but they don't as well. So I'm curious, I'm going to throw it in a different order too. How will the election impact the housing market, in your opinion?
I think I already answered that.
I know you did, kind of.
It stalls. It stalls for about 2 weeks. I've been doing this for 25 years, so I've seen a lot of election cycles. It doesn't mean the buyers go away. It just means they're stalled. They're going to just take a pause, and then everything shakes out in 2 weeks, and the sky hasn't fallen, and people get back into the market again. And there's going to be something else in the news that they're going to talk about. So it's about a 2-week pause.
So question then, would you be advising someone right now to buy or hold?
Ooh, it all depends. It depends. It really does. It depends upon what that individual's needs are. And, I can say all they want, oh, buy. No, if it's not the right thing for the client, we're not going to advise them to buy right away.
I guess the second question was rather than buy to sell. Would you answer the same way?
thing. It all depends upon what their needs are. I have clients right now, they're like, I'm ditching out of California. How fast can I get out of here? The election scares me. And I'm like, okay, I can help you with that. So it just depends again on the client's needs.
Excellent. Do you believe, in following what JJ said, the rates are going to come down, which will stimulate the market by the end of this year, or do you think that's going to happen into the next year?
I wish I had a crystal ball. Anytime when it comes to rates, I always defer to my partner here, JJ, because he has his fingerprints all over the market. He knows what's going on day in and day out. Rates are just like the stock market. I'm not a stockbroker, so I can't tell you what, Apple's doing today because I don't follow it as much as like what JJ would do with the interest rates.
Okay. All right, let's switch over to JJ. How is the current housing market in Orange County impacting first home buyers, especially with down payment assistance programs? What are the current interest rates and how are they trending? We've answered half of that already.
Yeah, so current interest rates right around 6.3 to 6.5%, and that can change. We see rates change as much as 10 times in a day. So I turn on my TV, I look, see where the 10-year treasury yield is, and that determines how the day's going to look for the clients that day. As far as how it affects them, I think it really depends on return on investment. Like that's what we focus on at my mortgage company, is making sure we focus on the return on investment, taking into account the tax benefit, taking into account the appreciation of the property, taking into account paying down that mortgage over a period of time. And these rates are temporary. The one thing I can tell you is that when I started in this industry, which was in the late 90s, I've seen a lot of different levels. Rates were at 9.99. I was selling 3-year adjustables with 5-year prepayment penalties, and selling a lot of them. And there was always something, there was always a rate, but at the end of the day, there's always people looking to buy homes for one reason or another. So we were at 7.5%, not but like 90 days ago. So now we're at 6.3. So it happens very quickly, regardless of what the Fed is doing. But the more the Fed does lean into lowering interest rates, which is what they're going to need to make sure that rates aren't too high and affect profits of businesses and the economy itself, then that will drive those rates down.
Excellent. Excellent. So, and it's a bit of a question from me as well, because coming from Australia, there's no such thing as a 30-year fixed loan. It's like, that's the craziest thing I ever heard of when I first moved here. That and 6% commissions was just mind-blowing. But the most you can get fixed in Australia is a 5-year fix, and then it flips over to a variable loan.
Yep.
So that's the standard what I'm used to, but I notice here not many people do a variable loan. Everyone always opts for the fixed. Is there any reason why, like, people do that? Is it not a better deal? Is it riskier?
I think it's security for people. Most people stay on their loan about 3 to 5 years. Even if they got this great 3% rate, the reality is a lot of those people will refinance out of it, sell out of it. That's just what happens when rates drop, no matter how low that they go. But a fixed rate is going to make sense for someone that's going to think for the long term. An adjustable rate may make sense for someone's in the short term. Yeah. So on my house, I have a 10-year adjustable. My kid's going to graduate in 2 years. We're leaving in 2 years no matter what, selling. It makes absolutely no sense for me to take a higher interest rate for a longer term. And I still have a cushion in there if I needed to and decided we were going to stay for 4 years or 5 years. So I think it really is going to determine on the individual needs of that client and making sure you sit down and look at all the numbers and how it could affect the worst case scenario. And then obviously you're always shooting for the best. But for a longer term fixed rate, people just go with what they know. Safety and something that they can count on no matter what.
Again, some people might not know this, some people do know this. Is there a charge for breaking a fixed loan?
No. I mean, most of the loans now don't carry prepayment penalties. There are some loans for what we call non-qualified mortgage, non-QM, so people that maybe can't show the income, can't show certain assets that qualify for those type of loans, that there may be a prepayment penalty on them. But your standard Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, conventional loans, most jumbo loans, they do not have prepayment penalties.
Excellent. Good to know. There's a huge penalty in Australia if you break a fixed loan.
Oh yeah.
Massive penalty. Let's go back to Gaston. I like saying your name like that, by the way. I don't know if this question is pertaining to me, but I'm going to say it this way. I'm getting older, and I'm tired of being a landlord, which I actually am. In addition, my kids do not want my rental property when I pass. Do I have any options? And if so, what are they?
So, 20 years ago, the IRS and the SEC created the Delaware Statutory Trust, the DST, right? Again, it's a legal trust that owns the title of institutional income-producing real estate, right? So it's ultimately like, you've got a revocable trust, you got a living trust. A Delaware Statutory Trust is another type of trust, and its sole purpose is to own and operate real estate on a daily basis on behalf of investors. And the reason why the DST was even created in the first place 20 years ago, because the 1031 exchange has been around for 100 years. The DST was just created 20 years ago. And the reason being is because 20 years ago was really the first wave of baby boomers entering into that retirement age that wanted a retirement strategy from their rental property. Up until that point, outside of maybe getting a property manager or maybe a triple net lease, Burger King or something, there wasn't much of a true passive retirement strategy for active landlords. And the DST allows investors, for various reasons, to ultimately get out of active real estate and retire and exit and reinvest their proceeds into investment real estate via a DST. And you have the pick of the litter. There's a menu of 45 different options, and you get $1 million. You can invest $250,000 across 4 different DSTs. One DST can be an Amazon distribution center in the middle of Michigan with a 30-year lease with 5% a year rental escalators, guaranteed by Amazon. Another, could be a student housing project at the University of Notre Dame. That was a project that just sold out recently. An apartment building in Texas, and then maybe a senior living facility in Eugene, Oregon. And literally have a diversified portfolio by state, by sector, and by multi-billion-dollar operators. And that's ultimately, I think, the best way to retire from a landlord business without paying taxes. And then secondly, one of the reasons why the DST is popular is because what happens when you pass away if you own investment property? What happens if you have 3 kids? those 3 kids have grandkids, and there might be 4, 5, 6 layers of beneficiaries that take over wealth upon someone's passing. And that can be really difficult to break up one big investment property. Should they sell it? Should you hold on to it? How do you break up that equity, evenly, so to speak? The DST is fractional ownership. It's a fractional interest in a real estate security. Ultimately, a DST is a security similar to a REIT, to a real estate investment trust. So if you diversify into 4 or 5 different DSTs, you can literally say, Johnny gets the student housing, DST A when I pass away, and then Sally gets DST B when I pass away. So it's a really easy way to pass down wealth upon your passing. And so as a financial advisor, I get to help that transfer of ownership, and then I come in and then meet with your beneficiaries and see what are your individual rules. Do I hang on to the DST and get the cash flow, or do you want to sell and cash out tax-free because you're going to step up a basis? So from an estate planning perspective, it's very valuable. I want to say one quick example. I have a gentleman I'm talking to right now that's got $5 million worth of single-family rental homes all across the Midwest, 82 years old. And we talked for 3 hours in the conference room at my office, and we went over all the different points. But the one thing that started to say, the light bulb turned on for him was, I said, who takes over your rentals when you pass away? He said, my 3 daughters, and they don't want to manage the real estate when I die. They've already told me that they do not want to manage the rentals when I pass away. The DST solves the headaches for the daughters when he passes away. So he's now looking into the DST not for himself, but how to pass down his real estate wealth to his daughters, so his daughters can now take over real estate tax-free without the headaches of trying to figure out, how do I manage 4 rentals in Ohio and 5 in Indiana, and a couple in Milwaukee, right? They've got kids of their own. So that's just, a major reason why.
Is there, once you enter into a DST, is there a minimum time frame they have to be entered into it to be able to get all the benefits out or pay penalties, or how does that work?
So there's 2 types of DSTs. The traditional DST, you're in it for typically 5 to 6 years at a time, right? You're in it, it's illiquid. You're getting monthly cash flow on the 15th of every month, right? The cash flows are typically between 4.5% to 6.5% annualized, tax-free cash flow. And it's about a 5 to 6 year hold. Every 5 to 6 years, you just turn it over, you get appreciation, and then you reinvest into other DST. You just continue to roll it over every 5 to 6 years, ultimately until you pass away. It's illiquid, so you can't readily pull your money out, if you need it for emergencies. But there's a second type of a DST, which is very popular, I think more so for older clients that want liquidity. It's something called a 721 UPRE, Section 721 of the IRS tax code, which allows an investor, when investing in a specific DST, after 2 years, that DST will be absorbed by that company's privately held $5 billion REIT. So you'll now be converted from a DST interest into shares of a private REIT tax-free. After 1 year in the REIT, you can pull your money out every 30 days. So that it provides liquidity in 3 to 4 years, and then you have control over whether or not you pull your money out. And if you have cost basis, you can pull that out tax-free. Upon your passing, your heirs in this REIT can now take over all of your equity and pull out within 30 days tax-free. So it's a way to combine the passive nature of the DST and give you a sense of liquidity rather than waiting for the property to sell. It gives you liquidity that you can kind of control it and take it out when you need it for emergencies. Most of my clients that are in their 80s and 90s, they like that option for themselves and for their kids. Yeah.
You said the traditional is 4.5 to 6. What would the return then be for this second one that you are describing?
Yeah, that's a great question. Her question was, the traditional DST cash flow is, between 4 to 6.5% annualized. That's by design. And the 721 UPRE, you're typically investing in higher end real estate and going from a property to maybe a $5 billion pool of real estate. So the cash flow is could probably be lower on the DST, around 4%. And then once you get into the REITs, it's probably around 6 to 7 a year.
All right, let's go back to Cheryl. Which one am I? Okay.
hard to do with.
I know you and I have been speaking about a lot of these points in general over the last 2 days, so I feel like I've already said them out loud, but I haven't yet.
Yeah.
How are new residential developments, more importantly, like the ones in the back of Irvine, Patola Springs, Lake Forest, how are they affecting home values in the areas when you're doing resales? That's something you and I have
Yes,
just
we're
experienced
very,
ourselves.
very close about that. In Irvine, there's a lot of brand new development, and I have the fortunate ability to sell a lot of homes in Irvine lately. And what we're finding is these new home sales are definitely throwing a wrench into the resale market because a lot of the homes in the area are 20, 25 years old. Most people are going, gosh, I'm buying a new home. What am I looking at? I'm looking at white walls, I'm looking at open floor plans, I'm looking at black cantina doors, I'm looking at nice big views, and I get builder warranty for 10 years. Now, fast forward, take a look at the resale market, 25 years old. Homes aren't maybe the most desirable floor plans. Maybe there's, I don't know, plumbing issues or termite issues. There's no builder guarantees. So, unfortunately, it's putting a damper on the resale market. So, for example, in Irvine, new properties are going right around $4 million. We're talking about 2,800 to 3,000 square feet, Irvine. Okay? That's insane to me. Okay, resale market. We're looking about 4,400 square feet. We're looking about $3 million. So you've got about $1 million difference in square footage difference. The problem is, it's just about the newness, the freshness. I don't have to worry about buying somebody else's bugs, if you will, right? So that's what we're seeing right now, that there is definitely a pressure down on those values.
Thanks for explaining that. Would it be fair to say...
Do you need to use this?
I told you I never need a microphone anyway. Let's see that. So, oh wow. In your opinion, I'm a buyer. I'm coming to you and I say, look, I want to buy in Irvine. I've got a family, 3 kids, they go to school in the area. I want a good family home, I want a backyard. I like the new homes, but the new homes don't have backyards. What would be your advice? Would you go for the old, or would you still advise to go for the new product?
You know, it depends upon what their needs are. I mean, a lot of times, if they're saying, hey, the builder's great, I like this is a great product, this is where I want to be, I can afford it, then we're going to show those new homes to them. Because we do cooperate and work with new home builders. If they're like, I can't afford that price tag, that's way too high, then we have some other options. We can bring people into some of the older homes, and then with Vicki, where's Vicki? Vicki's help here on our team. She's got an interior design background. She can come in and help, advise them of what they can do to move a wall perhaps, or upgrade the home, and then put some of that equity back into the property as opposed to maybe just putting it into a loan. So we do have options for that.
Okay, excellent. I'm going to do something a bit off script. I want everyone to stand up. It's like a 7th inning stretch. You're all a little bit stiff, you're all a bit quiet, no one's moving. Everyone get up, stretch it out a little bit. Come on, move around. You just had a nice wholesome meal. I know you're all feeling comfortable. This is your chance. That's what I'm talking about. Right there, there you go. Alright. Having a little bit of stretch. Blood pumping. Excited. I feel like no one's listening to me. There we go. Alright, let's get going again. Everyone's hydrated. Ready to go. Did you? Sure. Okay. Couple of questions for JJ, and I'm going to turn it on to you guys to ask any questions if you have, and see how we go from there. You guys get a chance to grill. JJ, I'm going to ask you a question first, huh? What are the options for refinancing if the rates drop this year? Or would you be telling people do not refinance this year and maybe strategize to wait till next year?
Yeah, that's a great question. What we do is look at the actual return on investment, meaning what they're going to save monthly, what they're going to cost, what the cost is for that refinance, depending on what options they're looking at, and see how quickly that's going to recoup. I usually like to see a refinance recoup period of time at about 6 months, in which case I would tell them to review it every 6 months and take advantage of it, because you just never know. You know, you might say, hey, we're going to wait for the rates to drop, and then they don't drop, and then you're stuck with what you have. Or you're trying to time the market. Timing the market is never a really good thing. People love to try.
It's a race you never get away.
Yeah.
Question, how many times can you refinance in a year?
As many times as you want.
So there's no minimum wait time in between?
No.
Excellent.
People can do as much as they want,
Excellent.
but obviously who they're consulting with should make sure that there's a reason for doing it, and that there's a benefit to doing it, and that there's a return on their investment.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm going to ask you one more. What are the pros and cons? I already asked that question, sir. What are the special loan programs or incentives available for first home buyers right now?
Orange County is unique. I mean, it's a $1.8 million average price point, but there are low down payment programs that are available for people as low as 3% down still, even in Orange County. There are some down payment assistance depending on the areas. There are some grants in some areas more than others. But it's really sitting down and seeing what that individual application looks like, what grants that they qualify for, and obviously making sure that they're comfortable with monthly payments that go along with the first numbers.
Excellent. Excellent. I'm going to do one last for Cheryl. Actually, I do have one last one, I guess.
Okay.
You
You
talk
better make it good.
Ooh. Who would you list your home with if you had to list your home, Cheryl?
Gee, that's a hard question. The Lynch Group, of course.
Which one in the group? Just joking.
Any one of us, we're awesome.
Just to make it difficult, so I thought I'd have fun with you. How do you see shifting interest rates impacting the market right now, especially in Orange County, South County, where you mainly focus on? Because obviously there's micro suburbs and it's happening differently in different areas. But with the shifting rates, are you seeing more people? I mean, obviously it's a bit redundant. We've made this point a few times with the election, but are you feeling that people are just waiting for this imaginary date that the rates are just going to drop?
Yes.
Jump back in?
We saw that this past year. People were waiting on the sidelines for that insane high interest rate. Okay, I have to be honest with you guys. My first house, I bought it was 18% FHA, I had PMI, and I was happy to have a home. So when anybody complains to me, oh, 7% so high, I go, oh my gosh, I used real estate to increase my wealth exponentially in 10 years, even starting out at 18%.
Yeah.
So, but back to your question, people are hypersensitive to the interest rate. Very sensitive. You gotta get a head nod on that one. Yeah, so even if it creeps up just a little bit, we'll see the market recede a little bit. Our phone calls go down. The people that are coming to the open houses are less. And the buyers are like, oh, I'm gonna just sit and wait. And we hear that a lot. But you know what? There's a proverb out there, and I'm gonna totally screw it up, so I have to apologize right up front. There's a Chinese proverb that says the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, and the second best time to plant a tree is right now.
Yeah.
Did I get it right?
Love that. It is true.
Okay, good. I thought I was gonna screw that up.
Of course, it takes 20 years to be an overnight success.
There you go. I like that.
Last question for you, Cheryl. So I'll turn it over to the crowd. In a changing market, pivoting, shifting, whatever you want to call it, was there a different phrase for it? What are you adapting as far as different strategies to sell homes?
Ooh, that's great. We used to be able to fog a mirror, put a sign in the yard during COVID, and we would have at least 14 offers over 100,000 to 200,000, and everybody was excited except for the buyer, because it was blood money they felt like they were paying, because there was no inventory at all. So, as we change and we come into more of a normal market, right now with 69 days is average in Orange County. If you're luxury over $6 million, it's 444 days on market, so you better like your real estate agent. So we did bring different strategies to the table, and we do the old-fashioned pick up the phone, call people, call other agents, where before we just kind of smiled again, put the sign in the yard, prayed, and we had people come. So we do a lot more marketing these days, just because the market has shifted, and people, there's still buyers that are demanding homes out there, but not as many as we had seen in the past. And we're going to see a big shift in the industry. One thing I know you have.
A different tool, maybe?
Yeah, there you go. One thing that we didn't touch on is what happened on August 17th. Who knows what happened on August 17th other than my other agent?
The new cop.
The new, yes. National Association of Realtors now are stating that buyers have to sign a contract with their buyer's agent. And guess what? Now buyers get to negotiate with their agent about what they're going to be paying them. Totally different. So if you haven't heard about that and you have some question, come see me. I become a very big pro on this very quickly, because as a listing agent predominantly, it's really making a spaghetti out of our market right now. So you have to have great negotiation skills, open communications, set proper expectations, and that's what's making us really successful right now.
Excellent. Gaston, let's wrap it up with you. My biggest asset is my principal residence. How do I monetize my home without paying a fortune in taxes if I sell?
So outside of the 1031 exchange, right, for rental owners, what do you do if you want to sell your principal residence? Outside of $250,000 exclusion per person, and then maybe any capital improvements that you put into your home, and then what you initially paid for it, that's what you get back when you sell. But what if you bought it for $2 million and it's up, $4 or $5 million since then, 20 years later? That's a lot of tax that you're gonna have to pay at 33.8% state and federal. And there really isn't a solution outside of maybe a CPA, getting creative with some losses and some other things, but there's really not a solution. But in 2017, the Washington and Silicon Valley pitched the Trump administration on opportunity zones. 2 debates ago, when Trump was debating Biden, he talked about opportunity zones. Opportunity zones is a tax code that was created to incentivize people, or business owners, stock owners, principal resident owners, anything and everything, that if you sell and there's a realized capital gain that's taxable, when you realize the gain, you have 180 days to reinvest the capital gain portion that's taxable into opportunity zones. Opportunity zones are areas across the U.S. historically that have been underperforming compared to the national average. Household income, unemployment, home ownership, and there's about 8,000 zip codes across the U.S. that qualify. There's even some in San Juan Capistrano, San Clemente, San Diego. You can Google opportunity zones and see which zip codes qualify. And there are areas across the United States, obviously, that are in the zip codes using 2010 economic consensus. 14 years ago, there were parts of Texas and Florida and Idaho and Arizona and really good areas today, but 14 years ago were classified as opportunity zones. Today, most of the institutional development and deployment of capital is going into these markets, and they're developing apartment buildings, storage facilities, hotels, and so opportunity zones, you have to develop or redevelop something from the ground up that's going to have a material impact in that local economy. You have to impact local GDP, which ultimately, why was this thing created in the first place, is to stimulate local economies that need help. Ultimately, to do what? Grow GDP. So this is one of the only tax codes that both sides of the aisle agree on. It's bipartisan because it benefits both sides, and it's probably going to get extended. And so, for a principal resident owner, if you bought a property for $500,000, right? You put in $500,000 of improvements, right? And then you're also married. That's $1.5 million, right? And you sell it for $3 million. You have a $1.5 million taxable capital gain. And when you sell that residence, once you receive the money, you have 180 days to redirect that into opportunity zones. If you do, you get to save federal capital gains tax of 23.8%. You have to be in the zones for 10 years. Any appreciation over 10 years is tax-free. Tax-free. So there's two ways to get involved. You can either develop or redevelop something yourself and do all the due diligence, figure out the qualifications, develop it, hold on to it for 10 years, and do it yourself, which is what a lot of people do. Wealthier, more sophisticated people will do that. But most of my clients would rather invest passively in these areas. So there's opportunity zone funds where you can invest alongside multi-billion-dollar developers that have been developing real estate for 80 years. Some of which have developed four-season hotels. One of them developed the One World Trade Center after 9/11. These are the biggest, baddest developers in the country. Now, when the zip code came out, they realized we can take full advantage and identify specific pockets to develop assets for investors, and there's a runway of appreciation potential over 10 years. So if you reinvest $1 million, let's just say your taxable capital gains $1 million. You pay, 30%. That's $300,000 you'll never get back again, right? You have $700,000 net after those taxes. You put it in the stock market, which is going to maybe average 8% over 10 years, right? Then you sell your stock. You have to sell it eventually, and that's taxable. So you're getting taxed upfront, and you're getting taxed when you sell at the stock market, averaging 8%. Or you can reinvest into an opportunity zone fund that's going to probably have about an average annualized return of 10-12% over 10 years, and that's all tax-free on the appreciation. And you're saving tax up front, tax-free growth. So it's a great way to monetize the wealth in your principal residence. And then lastly, you can also convert your principal residence into a rental property and then do a DST in 2 years. So if you got $5 million of equity sitting in the principal residence, how would you like to get 5-6% annualized cash flow of $5 million in 2 years? Tax-free, annualized cash flow, and then pass down that principal residence wealth in the form of a 1031 to a DST, and be able to pass that wealth down to your heirs. So you can monetize your principal residence and not be handcuffed and be forced not to sell because you're scared of getting hammered with taxes, and really monetize that hard-earned equity that maybe you've been just trapped in there the last 20 years. So that's a little bit of a long-winded answer, but I think it's important to touch on the opportunity zone because that's very powerful because you can literally build wealth tax-free. And it's a great way to continue to accumulate wealth. I have a lot of clients that might be 50 years old that don't want to convert a rental because they want to make more money. The DST is more of a retirement strategy, where the opportunity zone, that's how you really compound and find alpha. And you can outperform the stock market with no, volatility risk, because it's passive and it's private, and still be in real estate and take advantage of ways to build wealth in real estate, depreciation, all those things pass through, but you don't have to do anything. So, question?
Yes, I have a question about the 10 years.
I have a question about the 10 years. Is that assumable if the owner expires before the 10 years?
That's a great question. So if you do an opportunity zone fund, and let's say you're in the 10-year mark and you pass away in year 5, heirs will take over your position in year 5. They still have to hold on to the opportunity zone fund position for 5 more years to get the full 10, but they will receive a complete step up in cost basis. Because in the 10th year of an opportunity zone fund, you get a complete step up in cost basis. So any appreciation that's taken place over the last 10 years, you get a step up in basis, and then it's just one lump sum payout that's tax-free, and heir gets to participate in that. Not immediately though, they still have to hold it for the full 10 years, or in this case, 5 years after you pass away.
I got a question on that. Do the opportunity zones remain the same locations forever, or are they constantly changing and moving, and how long are they there for?
No, that's a great question. So opportunity zone, the window to take advantage of it is closing. As of today, at the end of 2026, you can no longer get invested in it. there's a high probability that it gets extended, because again, both sides of the aisle like this tax code. It benefits local communities. And again, these are not, when people think of opportunities, they think of like really, really bad areas, like ghettos and things like that. Like everyone just assumes that there's building apartment buildings in Detroit. I don't know why that's like the first thing that comes to mind. But I mean, I lived in Dallas, Texas for 10 months, and it's very granular with the opportunity zones. Like Mission Viejo, 92692-3678. It's very granular, and it's like block by block. So there could be a Ritz-Carlton across the street, and there's just literally a parcel of land that's an opportunity zone. So in Dallas, Texas, the Mavericks play basketball. Right across the street is a DoubleTree Hotel being built. That's an opportunity zone. Right across the street from an NBA stadium, right? I mean, that's how specific these are. But to Simon, your question, the zip codes last for the next 30 years, ultimately. But there is a chance that they might update it if it gets extended. So it might be maybe as of the 2024 consensus, which obviously would
So once you're locking, how long are you able to lock in for?
2040. You can hold on until 2040. So you don't have to sell it for 10 years. You can hold it for 20 years. But when you sell it out at the 20th year, that's all tax free.
All right. Mr. Chairman, question.
This can go to anybody up there. So on your primary residence, and you go to sell your primary residence, and let's say you have $2 million in equity. Before you do that, is there any kind of time period where you can actually take out a HELOC or something, pull money out of the house, invest that, and then your basis is based on what you have on the loan? And so, you know, again, let's say I have a $500,000 loan on it, they're gonna back that out plus the appreciation, that's what they're gonna base my tax on. Is there anything you can do to possibly tap into that equity beforehand, pull out in a loan, and then when you sell the house, then you're only taxed on what the loans are and what you're walking away with?
I can touch on that.
It was just, there was a thing that
Yeah.
they said that Gavin Newsom did, that his brother gave him a house, and it was a $24 million house, and he took out all these loans on it, and he turned around and he sold it, and he had no capital gains.
Interesting. If that were the case, I think people would be doing that a lot more, and I think that would be a little more of a mainstream, non-secret or loophole, if you will. The way that the IRS calculates capital gains, it doesn't really matter if it's debt or equity. It's your net sales price minus how much you paid for it, ultimately. So whether you refinance or whatever, it doesn't really matter. It's what you paid for it, any capital improvements, plus your tax exclusion minus your sales proceeds, minus the net sales proceeds, or net sales cost, and that's how they calculate capital gain. So if you've got no equity, you're still paying taxes on the capital gain, regardless of whether or not it's debt or equity. It's net sales price minus cost basis, which is what you paid for it, plus improvements, and then the tax exclusion. And that's what's subtracted off of your sales cost. Or, I mean, if that were the case, then people would be doing that all the time, and no one would be paying capital gains tax. So, you have anything you want to add?
Any questions from anybody? This is your chance.
What about this 500,000 exclusion? Is there any conversation going on? Is there any conversation going on to increase this limit because it's like from 90s, like antique kind of exclusion? I heard there's some.
I haven't heard of anything about that. Did we have this?
question?
Oh, the question was, is there going to be any change in the 250 per person tax exclusion? We haven't heard anything about that. I'd like to talk to you where you might have heard that, but that would be from the web.
Yes, but I heard
Yeah.
the real estate community is fighting for this.
There's a lot that
Because
are.
this is antique and basically
Yeah.
fair kind of law, because the limit set is the 90s.
Yeah, it was set in the
It
90s.
should be now proportionally like 2 million or something.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the government's gonna keep their mind on it.
That's one of the deterrents to a lot of people selling.
Yes, because of,
As you know, at the cost you've sold in our community,
yes.
that's probably more of a case than the low interest rate that we were talking about earlier. That people are not saying because they've been there for 30 years. They paid $2 or $3 million in equity.
That's where they need to talk to Gaston, so he can help with that tax
But Gaston
strategy.
didn't address a lot of people that don't have kids. Kids are talking about, you know, like everything you said, I understand, but like what if you don't have heirs and you want to use all your money as much as you can before you die?
Yeah, so her question was, is this from you owning a rental property perspective?
And we own rental properties as well as own our home, free
Okay.
and clear,
Okay.
and our equity is in the millions.
Understood.
So how are we gonna sell when we're gonna pay half?
If you don't want to,
1%, you know?
that's a great question. I've gotten a few people I'm talking to that that's the case. Her question is, well, I own a bunch of rental properties and I don't really have anybody to pass it down to. How do I tap into my wealth?
And I'd love to sell.
Yes, I'm always looking for
And I'd love to
new
sell
options.
my principal residence and not pay the
Sure,
tax.
sure.
And move to like maybe, you know, more modest places.
Sure. So, I'll touch on the rental property for a second. So, I have a client right now that's got $35 million of apartments in LA, and he's 55 years old, single. It's been a family real estate business for generations, and he's the last. And he really doesn't have anybody to pass it down to, and he wants to be able to touch his wealth without triggering this gigantic tax bill. So how do you do that if you own a rental property? It's nearly impossible. Right? Because the 1031 exchange, you have to continue to do it. So how do you do it? That's where the 721 upgrade I mentioned earlier, the second type of a DST, where you go from a DST and then it gets transferred into a $5 billion privately held REIT. And then you have access to your wealth every 30 days. It's going to cash flow 6-7% a year, tax free, and you can readily pull your capital out on a 30-day basis, almost like it's, rather than a savings account, it's backed by $5 billion of global real estate, which is inflation hedged, way better than being in savings. You're not paying taxes to get into savings. You get tax-free cash flow, and if there's appreciation for the next 10, 15 years, and you have access to your liquidity. And if you have cost basis, that's tax-free, that you can pull out, and anything above your basis is taxable, but it's not going to get taxed all in one sitting. It'll be taxed in tranches. So if you got $5 million, I want to pull out $100,000 out, at the end of the month, then you might pay tax on that next year. But nonetheless, it's accessible to you rather than paying tax on all the million at once. So the 721 option would provide you both liquidity in 3 to 4 years. Without, right? And then on the principal residence side, you have a couple of options. You can convert it into a rental and then do the UPREIT in a couple of years. Or you could sell it today and reinvest the gain portion into an opportunity zone fund and allow wealth to build tax-free over 10 years and have one lump sum, cash flow, so to speak, in 10 years tax-free. So it's a way to, can't touch your wealth today, but, how much is your home worth, do you think?
Like $4 million.
$4 million, would you pay for it? $1.25 million, so probably a couple $1 million capital
Maybe
gain.
1.5 with all this stuff.
Like a $2 million capital gain, plus or
Yeah.
minus. So when you sell your principal residence, you've got $2 million tax-free that you can do with what you want to do, and then perhaps a portion of the $2 million you reinvest into opportunity zones. It's going to grow at 8-9% tax-free over 10 years. So in 10 years, you've got something waiting for you that's been growing, keeping up with inflation that's available to you in 10 years, tax-free. So
1031 was better. Just rent it for a couple of years and then
you,
do the same thing with
Yeah.
7, 10.
yeah,
So we go in.
absolutely. That's more of a conservative play.
Yeah.
I think the opportunity zone's more of a.
Also more available money soon.
But-
3-4 years.
Yeah. Well, you have options, so if you don't want it from the estate planning side of it, and you want to provide liquidity for the both of you, this is the easiest route to do it, for sure.
And you can do principal residence wise, you can do part of it, if you want to use half of it to buy your next home, you can do that.
Absolutely. You can use the $2 million, the tax-free portion to go buy another home, and the taxable portion, you could have perhaps reinvest that into opportunity zone funds. And there's also oil and gas drilling funds that I do to help offset tax too. So there's a lot of creative things. I have a one-page sheet that I use. It's an analysis that shows you every single possible option. Sell it today, what's your tax liability? You sell it today. What happens if you convert it to a rental? You sell it in 2 years. You do 721, or you do a traditional DST, and you do an opportunity zone. I lay it out very easily, and I also have been vetted by CPAs, so I work very closely with CPAs to make sure that everything makes sense. Yeah.
Gaston, you talked about the DSTs and 5 to 6 year kind of holding period. What's the, are there transactional costs every 5 to 6 years, and are those significant or anything to worry about there?
That's a great question. So the way that I explain it, and I explain it the same way with everybody, there's a built-in cost to investing in the DST. It's not, obviously it's not free. You're investing alongside multi-billion-dollar operators. I'm going to use an easy math example. Let's just say a DST company bought a property for $100 million in Texas, it's an apartment building. They close on it, they finance it, they use their cash to close on it and get debt, right? They own it, it's on their books. It takes a lot of time and money to create the DST trust around the asset. You're creating a security. That's got to get approved with the IRS, with the SEC. It's got to get third-party tax reporting. Right? There's a lot of costs associated. So all that cost, and then as well as my commission, is built into the cost of the security. So they bought a property for $100 million. They're going to sell it to the investor for $108 million. So there's no out-of-pocket expense. It's kind of built into the cost. So if you're buying it at $108 million and they purchase it for $100 million, you know that they need to sell it for more than $108 million over the length of the DST to make up that cost. Once they make up that cost, then you broken even, so to speak. You typically break even within the first couple of years. So 5 years, 5 or 6, you're more than in the green. And then if you choose to do another DST, there will be another participation in that built-in cost on the next term.
What about the 1031? Is there a cost there also?
Well, the 1031 exchange, typically with a qualified intermediary, there's might be like $1,200. You need to use an exchange accommodator when you do a 1031 exchange, like $1,200 to hold it for 45 days, something like that.
Any other questions? I got a question for you, Cheryl. I'm going to walk around. I got $1 million for you, Cheryl.
Oh.
That's a question. I'm walking slowly. I'm coming to. I gave you $1 million, Cheryl.
Yes.
You're going to invest in South Orange County. Where are you putting it?
I guess my pocket isn't the right answer. Data point, there you go. A lot of, I have a lot of people who are saying, hey, I've got the money. What do I want to look at cash flow, right? Or do I want to look at appreciation? What is my goal here? Well, a great place is right around colleges. Colleges, if you want some good cash flow and appreciation, college area is always a wonderful place to do some investing. And, new home development, you always get appreciation. Not the $4 million in Irvine unless you have that, but you said $1 million. So then you're going to get $3 million worth of a loan from JJ, and then we can invest in new home development in Irvine. But new home development, you'll always see appreciation. Typically, you will see appreciation in home development. So those two areas, when I have somebody that comes to me and goes, oh, I have $1 million to burn, where are we going to spend it? Or I'll say, you know what, let's take a look at multiple smaller units. So we're spreading that out as opposed to putting all that $1 million into one asset. We'll see if we can get multiple assets for the person.
Thank you. Question?
Pivoting back, so for buyers, if we're looking at interest rates lowering, how is that going to affect the prices of homes? And if it does, is it really going to be a huge difference between the monthly mortgage payment if the rates drop, the prices increase? And if that's so, would right now where the rates are at before they drop be a better opportunity to buy instead of waiting?
Yeah, so roughly it's about 10 million more qualified homeowners for every 1% rate drop. So I can tell you, cross-country mortgage who I work with, We're the #1 retail mortgage lender in the nation. We have broken application records month over month for the 26-year history of the company since January. And we're up 50% year over year in closings. We do mostly purchase business. So it tells you what's coming as those interest rates drop. So what we see when interest rates drop, prices go up. That's what happens. Usually people are just waiting, not for rates to drop, just to see what everybody else is going to do. And I think people ask, I've found that people ask, what's the rate? What about the rate? Because they've been programmed to do so. Instead of looking at what's my return on my investment. You know, when you buy a stock, you spend $1, you get $1 worth of stock. When you buy real estate, you spend $1 and you can leverage the rest and you get all the upside, all this equity we were talking about, you get, and you can get it now with different instruments for tax-free. So it's really not being so fixed on, you can't see the forest through the trees, so to speak, and looking at your individual situation. The prices will go up as rates drop. People are very poised and ready to go. They're also saying it's about 7 out of 10 people aren't really happy with their current home situation. That's a lot of people that bought in 2021 under that pressure, which is bought the house that they had to buy in that time period. So there's going to be a lot of that stuff coming. So I would say yes, now is a great time to buy. As a real estate investor, I've been picking up as much property as I possibly can over this past 12 months. And I think when you're seeing what the investors are doing, that's what you want to keep a look for, because as the investors are buying up real estate, they understand what that looks like as rates go down and then the property values go up. Just supply and demand.
I'm going to add to that, tagging on the investor, the point that you just made. Every day I get probably 5 text messages from investors all over saying, I'm looking for a deal, I'm looking for that home. And Vicky's shaking her head, bring on, you get that too. You get that too, Nicole, Diana, yeah, we all get it.
Locally? You're talking locally?
Yeah, locally.
What areas do they want?
They want anywhere, they'll take anywhere in Southern California. They want a deal, okay.
Anything under 1.5 million.
Yeah, anything, get it to me, sure, I want it, and I just like delete. So, question, here's a pop quiz for you all. How many foreclosures are currently in Orange County today?
Like 5?
4. Yeah, 4 foreclosures, one short sale, 4 foreclosures. Okay, so if that tells you anything about where the market is, there's a lot of appreciation, we have a healthy market, right? There's no 2008 happening in our market space. So, you know, what to your question about, buying, we have a saying in the real estate market. We measure everything by COVID. It sounds really weird, but we had COVID. Then we had interest rates went up and then they went down. Then we had COVID 2.0 is what we called it, because that was the cadence of the market. It was, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. People want homes off market. There's 14 offers on these homes. We can't even get people in the property because of COVID, but we're still getting all the offers. So when those interest rates start coming down, if they come down significantly quickly, we're going to see what we saw back in the COVID years, is what we call it. So mark my words on that. That's my crystal ball.
I'm telling everyone, buy now, refinance. When the rates go down, it's going to only put the prices up. Heaven forbid you have a situation change in your life, you're going to end up paying back the higher amount. So, yeah, the time is always now, right? Time is always now.
Plant that tree now.
Is there any other questions?
So presumably, for a seller, it's better to maybe perhaps wait till next year.
Depends on what they want to do. If they want to get out of California, you can go now. Because what's going to happen is, everything's going to be in proportion. If they're going to buy in another area, typically it'll go up as well. It's not like, oh, I'm going to buy here, but I'm going to buy down there. That's just not how the real estate market typically works.
Yeah. All right. Anybody left? Yola? Okay. Thank you, Cheryl, for putting this together. Gaston, JJ, you guys are amazing. Great information. Massive round of applause. Also, thank our sponsors as well. Without them, this wouldn't happen today. Without Cheryl putting this all together, all the help, everyone putting their efforts in and helping putting things together, making the table arrangements, just making it was. So guys, thank you for coming along today. We appreciate it, each and every one of you. You guys are going to be here to help answer any questions you may have if you want to ask them out in public. And yeah, enjoy the rest of your evening and stay safe. You're welcome.